undermine the public health goals of promoting HIV screening and treatment. So pretty much what we're getting here is that now they've said, well, yeah, we want to control HIV infection rates. And the best way to control HIV infection rates is by allowing people to have the opportunity to get tested, people adhering to ART therapy, which is antiretroviral therapy, and people having the opportunity to tell their partner or prospective sexual partners their HIV status. When we live outside of that, we have people who are ignorant to the fact of whether or not they need to maintain their health. Someone sees a free HIV positive testing, a free HIV testing site, and they say, oh, you know, I'll never get HIV. There's no purpose for me to take an HIV test. Just because people don't usually have to be concerned with whether or not their partner is having sex with someone else, and they feel secure in the fact that their partner is not having sex with anyone else. But unfortunately, a lot of the new cases of HIV find people who unintentionally have engaged in sexual intercourse with people not knowing their personal HIV status or not thinking that their personal HIV status was a risk factor. And so it is very difficult to prosecute people for that reason, and that's why the Supreme Court has overturned this decision. In fall of 2010, the Center of HIV Law and Policy launched Positive Justice Project, a campaign to combat HIV-related stigma and decriminalization against people with HIV by the U.S. criminal justice system. It released a manual of HIV-specific laws and prosecutions in the 50 states, District of Columbia, and the United States. It released, the U.S. territories, federal government, and military. Representative Barbara Lee, September 23, 2011, introduced House Resolution 3053, the repeal existing policies that encourage and allow legal HIV discrimination act. The Repeal HIV Discrimination Act, which calls for a review of federal and state laws, policies, and regulations regarding the criminal prosecution of individuals for HIV-related offenses. The bill died in the Subcommittee on Health in 2013-24. So unfortunately, they presented a bill where they said that they wanted to revamp the strategy for how the states deal with people who are diagnosed with HIV unknowingly or willingly. And unfortunately, the bill has not passed. Courts have looked into the statistical probability of HIV transmission to overturn or reduce criminal sentence resulting from prosecutions. For example, in February 23rd of 2015, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces revised the aggravated assault conviction of Technical Sergeant David Gutierrez upon determining that the risk of HIV transmission through sexual intercourse was not likely to produce death or grievous bodily harm under the applicable statute, which is what I just said. You know, when you present these cases into court and the person says that I'm not guilty of giving someone HIV intentionally, you know, I was intoxicated, I was drunk, I was high, and so because of that, we had engaged in sexual intercourse, and the person that I engaged in intercourse with either gave me HIV or I gave them HIV, I'm not certain. But then they go and have sex with another partner, and it's in that same scenario, you know, where the person is inebriated or intoxicated, and then they have sex with this other person, and they intentionally or unintentionally give this person HIV as well, unknowing to themselves that they've already been infected with the virus, and that it is incubating in their bloodstream. Which is why it is difficult to prosecute for someone like this, for an act like this, and this is why the Supreme Court is overturning it and trying to make specific state laws to enforce the act of criminality through the transmission of HIV. Medical research has identified the following situations in which HIV may be transmitted: sexual, which is unprotected sexual intercourse; blood donations, transfusions, organ transplants; unsterilized needles and syringes. Now, unfortunately, most of these states that are advocating for the criminality of HIV transmission and trying to include hepatitis C and hepatitis A, or hepatitis C specifically, and human papillomavirus, unfortunately don't have sterilization programs for needles. They don't have proper HIV testing sites where they have people that are actively in the community testing people for HIV so that they can become aware, so they can make more logical decisions with the people that they sexually interact with. But then yet and still they're advocating for a law that says specifically anyone who has HIV who has sex with another and transmits it should go to jail. But they're not offering, which is why the justice system is having a little issue with being able to prosecute someone like this. They're not offering alternatives. You know, the government works where if you have an alternative to what you can do, you know, you can make this decision or you can do that. You can be more well-informed, and by being more well-informed, you can make more logical decisions in the future. But then most of these states don't offer the simple recreational needle syringes for recreational drug use and drug paraphernalia, tattooing. You know, tattoo parlors are supposed to have trainings in sterilization, and they're supposed to have ways to clean needles for tattooing. A lot of times, I mean, look, if you go and get a tattoo somewhere, contract HIV from a dirty tattoo needle, have sex with 2 or 3 different people, because that's your right to have sex with whomever you want. And then one of those persons tells you, oh, I'm HIV positive and you were the only person I had sex with, and you're going to go to jail for HIV transmission, but the person who contracted HIV has only had sex with 3 partners, doesn't use recreational drug, IV drug use, you know, recently got a tattoo at a tattoo parlor, and because they got a tattoo at a tattoo parlor with a dirty needle, they caught HIV unknowingly, and then had sex with these people. So then you now want to prosecute this person for saying that this person has intentionally given you HIV and they were unknowing to the fact, which is why it is important to keep programs that have sterilizations and programs that have clean needles for people who, and tattooing for people who deal with blood and with skin and infections. Blood donation. Well, you can't donate any blood if you're HIV positive, which I disagree with. You know, I think that there are a number of HIV positive people in this country. By there being a number of HIV positive people in this country, there are people who are HIV positive who are terminally ill, who may need not necessarily a clean organ, although HIV does affect the organs, you know, but they need an organ transplant. I don't think that we should deny someone the right to give blood or organ transplantation because of their status. I think that it is important to label the blood that is HIV positive or hepatitis or human papillomavirus infected. I think it is important to label those types of blood transfusions, but it is criminal as well to knowingly give someone HIV through blood transfusions. I'll return with sex lies and HIV when what you don't tell your partner is a crime.